So is this working or is this not working? I'm having a hard time telling. I just don't know if this is working, but I guess we're about to find out. Hello everybody, welcome to the Feminist Weather Report. Okay, this episode shall be delivered to you in chapters because this is a book, okay? And the book is called How Women Are Erased from Art History, okay? 101. Actually, this is not 101, this is 201, this is an advanced class, okay? So if you didn't see the last episode, stop where you are, rewind, go back, watch the last episode, okay? And then catch up with us here, okay? Thank you. And just like last week, I'll be using Spencer Tunick's latest creation for We the Nipple, okay? I'll be using this as the example for our discussion. So when I talk about the erasure of women in art history, I always begin with the Renaissance period, you know, and I ask, like, can you name one Renaissance woman painter? And then the person usually says, well, there were no women painting back then, you know, because women weren't painters and it was difficult for women, women's rights, etc. And I'm like, the fact of the matter is there were a lot of women Renaissance painters. For example, Fede Galizia, not only was she a Renaissance woman painter, but she also defined a genre called the still life. Ever heard of it? There's also Sofonisba Anguissola. She was a portrait painter and she was part of the Spanish court. So like she was famous, basically. And then there's Lavinia Fontana. She was a portraitist at the Vatican, okay, hello, and she was also the first female artist to paint female nudes. But are these women being mentioned in our history books? No. Are they in our museums? No. I mean, do we even know their names? I mean, answer is no. I mean, okay, so now that we see that women are erased from art history, the next question is, how are they erased? I theorize that one of the ways that women's work is erased from art history is that if we look to women's bodies, we can see how they're entirely up for grabs. People can comment on women's bodies, tell them what they think, shame them, shun them, sexualize them, rape them, grab them. I mean, basically, if this isn't a boundary, like, nothing is, you know what I mean? Including women's labor, women's work, women's philosophies, women's theories, you know, and women's art. And we can see how this theory is operating in the latest piece by Spencer Tunick. I mean, we know that Spencer Tunick is a good guy, okay? I mean, he's an activist, he's working for climate change, he often donates his time and talents as he did for this campaign, and you know, he has been talking with me extensively about this. So, you know, it's not like he's a bad guy, but still this thing happened, you know, where he says that he had permission to use this work, but the artist, you know, she says that she never gave permission to use her work. And in fact, you know, she's a professor and she says that if Spencer Tunick was her student, she would have given him an F and he would have been in serious trouble because this is a violation of practices and standards. Nobody meant for this to happen. You know, Spencer Tunick didn't mean for this kind of erasure to happen, but the fact of the matter is the damage is already done. Because as Professor Hebron points out, headlines matter, okay? And her name doesn't appear in any of the headlines about this legendary art action. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's almost hard to believe that this is even possible, you know what I mean? Because this is, you know, the National Coalition Against Censorship. Mostly women are working there. Spencer Tunick is definitely an ally in the conversation. But, you know, if you apply my theory, you know, to this, you can see how it's definitely possible. I mean, we are living in an environment, okay, all of us are living in it, including Spencer Tunick, including me, including you. Like, we're all living in a world where women are up for grabs. And so when that is in the consciousness, it's really easy for these things to happen. And it's also really easy to see that this thinking is prevalent in the art world. I mean, just with the fact that women are basically erased from the art world in general, but also, unfortunately, I can provide yet another great example of how my theory is operating in this same art piece. I was speaking with the National Coalition Against Censorship, just trying to understand their position throughout this process. And, you know, come to find out, actually, We the Nipple has nothing to do with, you know, gender equality whatsoever. We the Nipple is not actually about women's nipples at all. You know, it's about the censorship of art in general. And since we know that art in general generally means white men. Like, so using my theory that everything about women is up for grabs, we can see that really what we are looking at when we are looking at this artwork is a white male artist and an institution using women's art, women's bodies, and a women's rights issue to talk about something they want to talk about, which is not about women's art, women's bodies, or women's rights, but about art in general, which, by the way, happens to be mostly white men, who, by the way, are fighting other white men for the right to depict women's bodies how they want to depict women's bodies. Okay, so summary of chapter 1 is everything is up for grabs when it comes to women, including women's bodies, women's artwork, and women's rights movements. Okay, so the second way that women are erased in art history is through the sexualization of our work and our bodies. The thing that Instagram and Facebook has taught us is that once you get sexualized, you get erased. Unfortunately, I can find examples of this in my own life and in my own work. Just last week, I was banned from Facebook for 30 days for posting a feminist weather report, okay? Specifically, the feminist weather report about the Spencer Tunick action. Even though it's obvious that there is absolutely no sexual content whatsoever in the video, and actually all of the female nipples that are shown are within Facebook's guidelines, which include art and protest, even though all those factors exist, I was still banned for 30 days, even after appeal. We're also shadow banned on Instagram, which means that none of our hashtags go out whatsoever, and it's also really difficult to find us on Instagram. So basically 2 main platforms for sharing artwork, that Spencer Tunick is fighting for, actually women don't even have the privilege of using in the first place. Even though Spencer Tunick and I are both doing the same thing, using the human body to create art and talk about issues we care about, he's not being punished for doing so. He is being recognized as an artist in all fields and in all media, while at the same time, I don't even have a name. I mean, let's face it, it's pretty easy to say that 30 years from now, when we're looking back on this moment at 2019 women's rights issues, Radical Matriarchy's name may not even show up, and Spencer Tunick's name will be in the headlines, okay? Okay, so summary of chapter 2 is once you get sexualized, you get erased. And as we learned in the first feminist weather report, women are sexualized every single day of their lives. And so this is definitely one of the reasons why we don't see women appearing in art history. And it's definitely going to be one of the reasons why 30 years from now, women also will. I mean, it's pretty hard to see somebody who isn't there. Chapter 3, the aesthetics of erasure. Okay, actually, I'm just joking. I think we've learned enough today, okay? I know my brain is like, done. So this is going to be a 3-part series, and in the next episode we are going to talk about the aesthetics of erasure. Again, we will be using Spencer Tunick's work to kind of unpack and analyze, what happens when women are erased from the art world. But before I go, I want to talk about some comments I've been receiving on Instagram and also messages, and just, critique, which is that, why are we going after Spencer Tunick? The reason why I critique my own communities is to point out that the sexualization and erasure of women's bodies is happening literally everywhere. This is not just a problem in the Trump administration or in the Republican Party. This is not a partisan issue. I mean, this problem is worldwide and pervasive. I mean, the other thing is I'm not mad at Spencer Tunick, okay? And I also think his art is great, okay? Ultimately, I'm not talking about Spencer Tunick, I'm using his art to talk about an issue I care about. Just like he used women's bodies and women's art to talk about an issue he cares about. I'm basically doing the same thing he's doing, and yet people are wondering, why I'm not being nice to him. So, I mean, I think we can see what the problem is here. Hey everybody, thanks so much for taking the time to let Feminist Weather Report into your life, okay? If you're enjoying this, if you've learned something from this today, and you believe what I believe, which is that this work is important and valuable and really needs to be in the world, please head on over to the Patreon and become one of the producers of the Feminist Weather Report. This work is not possible without your support. $1 a month, $5 a month, $500 a month, all of this helps us put this information together to inform and educate people about the sexualization of women's bodies. Thank you so much for your support.